Mm. All right, so welcome to this Sacred Journey podcast. I am your host, Jackie Sabalsa, and today I have the amazing honor to introduce one of my dearest brothers, spiritual allies of all times. His name is Nathan Coury, and he is one of the most badass spiritual ninjas that I have ever met. We're in for a really great conversation, and I've known Nathan for over 10 years now, and we've just been weaving in this beautiful, sacred, ceremonial life that we are in. So, yeah, I'm really excited to get to introduce you more to my soul tribe. And Nathan is just one of the most beautiful humans that I know. He's a very amazing, like conscious, probably one of the most in integrity beings that I've ever met as well. So I really want to put
Mm,
that out there and really like
mm,
honor you for that. And yeah, he's also like an he does all these multifaceted kind of things. So he's a spiritual warrior, but he's also a business leader, um, the co-owner or full owner. Yeah, you can correct me there. Of Freak Bros Pizza in Phoenix, if you're in the area, check it out. It's one of the best. And right now, you're really stepping into your spiritual leadership, so which is super, super exciting and more of a community building. So, yeah, without further ado, here's Nathan. Hello.
Hey, Jackie. I'm so excited to be having this conversation with you because we always have the most incredible, deep conversations that usually last for hours.
Yep.
So I'm excited to at least share a taste of this here with the people who are tuning in to your podcast. And it's been cool to even like hear the evolution of like, I remember you telling me about your desire to start a podcast a while back, and to be here now is just kind of surreal. And yeah, just feel deeply honored. Yeah, you are just one of my longtime spiritual allies on this path as well. And we've gone through so much together, and just so excited to just share our friendship and our connection and just our journeys. And yeah, we have a lot to talk about. So I'm sure we will only scratch the surface in one episode, but I'm definitely excited to come back for more.
Oh yeah, we have a lifetime. And yeah, I want to mention the whole podcast. You've been like such a huge part of it because you were like one of the biggest inspirations with your own podcast, which by the way, if you want to mention the name of your podcast here, I believe it's in pause right now, but yeah, so they can check.
Yeah, it's called What the Freak, and I have one season right now, 33 episodes that I finished, and I'm actually feeling just about ready to
Yeah.
relaunch that. So stay tuned.
So yeah, and yeah, just your support through the years. I really want to thank you for that. And also, before we even start the conversation, I wanna let our listeners know how we met because I feel like this is such a deep, long-term friendship, and it's going to continue. And from now on, I feel like this is the first podcast of many to come. So I really want them to know you and know how we met. And I mean, we can both weave in, but maybe I'll begin.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it today of like the magic and synchronicity of how we met. And we met through a mutual friend. Her name is Kelsey. So if you're listening, hi, Kelsey. And it was like about maybe 10 years ago that one of your best friends passed away. His name is Max, right, Max?
Yep.
And I never got the pleasure to meet him in person, but I knew about him through Kelsey and through other friends. And I just knew how of an amazing, beautiful human he was. And I remember that when he passed, I was working at a retreat center in Mexico in this beautiful beach. And I found the news. And even though I never met him, it really impacted me to the point that I felt like I was grieving. And I was just
Mm.
like really surprised to feel all of these emotions. And I was crying and I was praying for him. And that night we had a kirtan by the beach. Me and my friends, we were in a circle and we were overlooking the ocean. There was a sunset happening, and I just really vividly remember um, like setting the intention for his life. Like it was just like for me, it was like a prayer for his life and for his transcendence. And I remember having a vision of him like joining us in the circle, and he was like like behind the sun as it was setting, and I could just see him smiling like so big, and his light was like so strongly shining around, like almost like he became the sun. And he was just like playing this drum. And I didn't know anything about him other than like he's Kelsey's partner, right? So he was
Mm.
playing this like djembe, and it just really stayed with me, that image, and I shared it with Kelsey. And a year later, there was a celebration for his life at in LA. And I remember they invited me to his celebration. And first I was like, well, are you sure? Because I never met him. And they were like, no, please come. So I ended up coming to his celebration of life. And that's where I met you. And like at the first moment I saw you, I just knew like it was a soul brother. And I just felt it. And then one of the first things you mentioned is like, oh yeah, I'm going to an ayahuasca uh, ceremony in a couple of months or in a month or something like that. And by that time, I had been feeling like deeply called to the medicine. Like it was popping up everywhere. And I was just waiting for the right moment. And when you said that, like everything in me just jumped. I was like, I knew that was the call, that was the moment. So fast forward, ended up going to the ceremony, fucking completely changed my life. That was 10 years ago. Most intense ceremony of my life to date. And at this point, I've sat like around 30 or plus times with the medicine. And still, that is the most intense ceremony. We can talk about it in a different podcast. But since then, I feel like our friendship just kind of developed in this way of like, it's been an ongoing ceremony, and we just drop in every few months, and we're like living this live ceremony and sharing codes and supporting one another, and it's just been super epic to witness your journey and to also feel you as a support and as an ally. And one last thing
Mm.
I want to mention about that whole story that I told about Max is that it was like a few months ago that I came to Phoenix and I held a cacao ceremony at your house. And I remember walking into this room where I was gonna like prepare for the ceremony for you and your friends. And I just saw this drum and I was like gravitated towards it. And I just like walked like a zombie towards the drum. And can I touch this? You were like, yes, for sure, you can touch it. It was actually my friend's Max. And like I got the chills because I had forgotten of that vision. And then he just like came
Mm.
back to me of like I saw him playing this drum in my vision before I even knew he played drums. And and like it was that vision that took me to LA. And it was like now this drum is with you. So I feel like we're so connected, and like I feel like Max played such an important role for our friendship and our connection, and just want to honor him as well, and
Mm.
passing the mic to you. Yeah.
Mm.
Hmm.
Wow. Beautiful. Yeah, thank you for that beautiful reminiscing on our meeting. And yeah, shout out to Max Mendoza. I love you, brother. Thank you for connecting us and being just such a light in this world. And yeah, that's actually like the only uh, piece that I ended up keeping of his. Somehow his drum landed with me, and I've had it ever since. And it just kept it and brought it with me wherever I've gone. So yeah, it was a really amazing full circle when you just were like drawn over to it when you facilitated that cacao ceremony at my house. So yeah, what a beautiful synchronistic journey it's been.
Yeah. So yeah. Wow. So grateful for everything. But
Mhm.
yeah. So today, let's drop in. You just came from like 2 full months of like full jam-packed, powerful experiences
Mm.
that you've been going through back-to-back retreats and powerful tantra activations, and you met your partner. So there's just so much right now that is alive in the field, and that is just so many powerful life changes are happening in your life and activations that I'm just really excited to speak about it. And like it's yeah, like is there anything that's like very alive for you in the moment where you want to start, that you feel called to begin?
Mm. Yeah, I actually would love to start with the topic of sacred leadership.
Ooh, love it. Let's go. Mhm.
Yeah. So, I'll start out by saying, for me, sacred leadership has been like my words of the year. That's been like the theme of this year is like this calling to at least begin truly stepping into my sacred leadership, which is a theme that I think will continue to carry next year. And of course, in the future beyond this. But this year was really where I answered the call to this whole nother level of that. So I guess how I'll weave this together is back in May, I went to an ISTA level one retreat. ISTA, for those not familiar, is the International School of Temple Arts. They're an incredible international Tantra organization that I've been involved with for the last couple of years and have started to build a local community, helped to build a local community here in Phoenix. There's been kind of a resurgence. So yeah, I assisted at it was my second ISTA retreat I'd been to in Sedona. And during and after that retreat, I was very clear that I have these gifts to share and that my embodiment is a gift to certain fields and spaces that I step into. And it was really clear to me when I left there, especially based on some of the feedback I received from some of the team that I worked with, and just a couple of experiences I had in some of the rituals, that I'm really called to being called to my leadership. So in the months that followed, I ended up assisting and kind of supporting one of my good friends here. Her name's Lillian. She organizes Tantra events here in Phoenix. And she asked me to assist at a couple of her events just to support her. And that kind of got my feet wet in, stepping into this event space and starting to imagine myself facilitating. So fast forward a few months, and I've recently started facilitating my own events over the last few months.
Mm.
I've actually started facilitating cuddle parties, which has been amazing, which is basically a safe space for platonic human connection, where you can cuddle, you can connect, you can have deep conversations, you can laugh, you can cry if you want to. I usually have a bunch of abundance of really good snacks available that we can munch on and drink, and non-alcoholic drinks and stuff. So it's been really amazing to start to build community, start to create space for people to heal, to connect, to meet each other. And yeah, definitely having like further callings over the next 6 months that I'm going to be stepping even further into my leadership. Um, Funny enough, the topic of sacred leadership was the very first conversation I had with my now partner, Katasha, the first night that we met right before an opening sweat lodge in a 2 week ceremony that we went into called shamanic de-armoring. It's put on by an organization called the Deer Tribe. They're a lineage of Native American shamanism that I got introduced to this year and have already done several experiences with them now. But yeah, the topic of our first conversation was sacred leadership and how each of us felt called to that in our own lives. And that's really what kind of kicked off our connection. We then got to know each other over the course of those 2 weeks in ceremony. And after that, ended up signing up for 2 additional ceremonies with each other. And it's just been a wild 2 months. Um, so yeah, we went to their Krodoshka experience after that, which is a 4 day sacred sexuality experience, also put on by the Deer Tribe. And then we did a special 5 day ceremony called the Womb of Benevolent Compassion um, that we went through as partners together, which was a really deep shamanic ceremony to really anchor in the frequency of benevolent compassion, which really, another way to describe it is no pity and no self-importance. So really seeing, in my words, seeing every human being as an empowered human being and treating them as such, starting with ourselves, really not having any pity for ourselves, not disempowering ourselves in any way, but also not overinflating our egos or having too much self-importance, really just honoring ourselves as we are, honoring ourselves for who we are, honoring the power that we have within ourselves to change our lives and to navigate our lives with intentionality and sovereignty. So that's just a little bit of a taste of the last couple of months, and the topic of sacred leadership. All these initiations have really been helping me to step into my sacred leadership on another level. I'll kind of finish for the moment by saying that the last initiation I just went through was going to Costa Rica for my ISTA level 2 experience, which the difference between ISTA level 1 and 2 is that ISTA level 1 is more about our personal healing journey. So our past, our background, our identities, who we are, the trauma we've personally been through, our names, all of that is kind of what they focus on in the ISTA level 1 experience. in the ISTA level 2 experience, it's almost the opposite in a lot of ways. It's more of a transpersonal experience where essentially on day one, you give up your name and you take on a different one. You essentially are no longer who you are in the outside world. You let go of your identity, your past history, all of that, and you just show up as the human that you are. And you get to play in that space for a while and really understand, who am I when I let go of all the stories, all the ideas of who I am, everything that I've been through, but who is this human being? Who is this soul embodying this body right now? And how do I show up and interact with others? And who am I in relation to this field of humans and in relation to the collective? And how can I be, in my experience, like how can I be this vessel for love, for God, for blessings to flow through me? And how can I show up as love and serve the field, serve the collective, serve my fellow humans around me, and letting go of my identity, letting go of my preferences, and really honoring each human being that I'm connecting with. Um, so yeah, it's been a really powerful experience to kind of hold both sides of things of, I am a unique individual, I have a name, a history, an identity, an image, but also like I'm just a human being. And I'm just here to be of service. And I'm grateful and honored to do that. And it doesn't matter who I am in a
Mm.
way. So it's like both, but for me, both can be true. Like I am Nathan, I can own that, I can appreciate that, and there's a lot of cool things that come with that. And I can also just be this human being who has these gifts, who has this energy, who has a certain effect when I walk into a room, when I'm speaking on a podcast, when I'm connecting with another person, and I get to honor just being one of 8 billion plus humans on the planet and really feel like the genuine humility in that of just being part of this human family, one cell in the human body of humanity, and ask myself, how can I be a cell of this body that is truly benevolent and of service and is a cell that helps to, improve and elevate and empower all of the other cells as much as I can. Um, so yeah, that's I'll pause there for the moment because I feel like that was a lot.
Oh, I love it. There's so much there to unpack. Like I'm already feeling like, wow, there's so many. But this is just like the intro for the rest of the podcast because it's all the subjects we're going to dive deeper into. But I really love like this last definition that you shared about seeing yourself as an individual, but also as this cell as part of the collective. And I feel like we're really just that. We are a cell in the body of creation, the body of God, and we can either choose to become a cell that is like healing and influencing the other cells in a cohesive and harmonious way, or we can become a cancer cell that is just destroying everything around us. So it's our choice. It's an inner work that also needs to happen. And I feel like from everything that you gather about your sacred leadership, the archetype of the king and queen have been coming up very strongly in my field of like the healthy ones, right? Like the sacred queen and the sacred king. Um, and what you describe sounds very much like the sacred king of like we're here to be of service, not to take, right? And there's a lot of distortions happening in the spiritual field right now. I see a lot of people as well, like maybe starting with good intentions, but then distorting into a way that is more like self-serving or like more ego-driven. And to really stay centered is a lot of work, right? Like once you step into the sacred leadership, to really be have this powerful grounding pull of like this is my purpose. Like I'm here to be of service and to support others into a great way of being in the best way that I can with humbleness as well. And to every time that we fall off, because we're human, we will fall off. It's like to come back to that center and to come back constantly. So yeah, thank you for your definition. Like it really grounded it more for me, and I can really feel it in you. Like you already have like a natural leadership energy that since I've met you is like you are naturally a leader. So to see you step even more into that, into being in a greater service sharing now more of your spiritual gifts with others. I'm really excited to see that.
Mm,
It's been so great to witness your journey, and
mm.
this next phase of your journey is really, really beautiful. So, yeah. Okay, so I have some questions from everything we shared. Like we were speaking about
Cool.
leadership, and I mean, I want to start since the beginning because, like, whoa, cuddle parties, what? The first thing you mentioned, and it is like, um, we've talked about this already, but I feel like I've heard these terms of cuddle parties in New York and everything. And when you told me you held one, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm really excited to hear more about it because I feel like I've been into a lot of cuddle, but not necessarily specific parties, just like I've been in
Mm,
a lot of communities where this is just normal. And it's helped me a lot, like heal and my fears around connection with people is helped me find like deeper intimacy with others and like feeling safer. And a lot like one of the things I wanted to share that you kind of briefly mentioned is that for me, cuddling is like one of the greatest medicines. Like now, like
mm,
I learned how to cuddle like naturally through these communities many years ago, but now I have cuddle buddies, right? Like that they're like really close friends that I feel very safe with, and that every once in a while we like sleep over and we cuddle and there's nothing sexual. It's just like straight up cuddle. And it's such a bizarre concept for people who've never experienced it. It's like it feels like so out there. Like some of my friends who've
mm,
never had this, they're like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like it's almost like they can't fathom that you can cuddle someone with no sex. And for me, it's
yeah.
like, well, you have sex with strangers and sometimes like people normalize that more, like having sex with strangers, but not cuddling. And what I feel like there's a huge lack in society with connection, with intimacy, and a lot of this desire for sex. Like sometimes, and like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like I feel like there's a place for everything, but I feel like a lot of the times we choose to be in sexual connection with people that maybe we don't really want to be because there's a need in our bodies that wants intimacy, and we think that that's the only way we're going to get intimacy.
Mm,
So I feel like cuddling is like an amazing alternative that helps you get the intimacy that you need. And then from there, make a sovereign decision of like, okay, do I feel fully safe and ready to be in sexual connection with someone, with this person? So, okay, that's my view. And I just want to
mm.
pass back the mic to you. And like, first of all, like, yeah, like if you want to describe a little bit more what happens in a cuddle party.
Yeah, totally. I love this topic. I'm super fascinated by it. And part of the reason why I'm facilitating these is I think it's really interesting kind of dissecting these different threads of types of connection. So we have like platonic connection, right? That's like a friendship connection. There's not, romantic energy present. There's not sexual energy present. It's just a, yeah, platonic connection. Um, and then there are more romantic connections. And then, as you mentioned, there can be sexual connections. And I agree. I think it's quite interesting that people can feel more comfortable going to a bar, drinking some liquid poison, so they can connect sexually with a stranger that they just met. But cuddling with someone that you know or you don't know can be weird.
Yeah.
Like, there's something strange to me about that. Like, it just doesn't check out for me. So, yeah, I just want to start by playfully sharing that. Yeah, and cuddle parties, there's different ways that certain people facilitate them. For me, at least how I've started out, we are currently facilitating like purely platonic cuddle parties. So there's a very specific container that's created. It's almost ceremonial in nature. We do a specific opening circle that asks everyone to be present for at the start. It takes about an hour to go through this whole circle, because I share kind of the history of why I'm doing this, share some of the rules and boundaries. We go around and each person introduces themselves and shares how they're feeling and what their intention is. We drop in with some meditation. So it's a very intentionally created space. And then at the end of the opening circle, we actually do like a demonstration and a couple of practice exercises that kind of transitions us into the cuddling that kind of warms people up. Usually it's something around like making requests. So requesting a different kinds of connection, like, hey, can I touch your arm? Can I like give you a hug? Can I be the big spoon. There's different, things that you can ask for. And that in itself is a beautiful practice. Like it's literally like this playground where you get to practice your communication skills. You get to practice consent. You get to practice saying yes and saying no
Mm,
in a safe container. One thing I like to say is that no isn't a rejection, it's a redirection.
mm,
And so there's like some different teachings that we get to even bring in around this that helps us as humans to better develop our relationship skills and our communication skills and even our ability to like receive our desires and even deal with, yeah, receiving no's. Some people actually have a really hard time saying no. Those of us who associate with like people pleasing or like fawning is like another term that we can kind of bring into this mix. Some people is very challenged saying no. So sometimes those people get an opportunity to practice saying no.
mm,
Some people I know, some of my close friends, have actually spent an entire cuddle party before just saying no to every request. And that's been like the most epic, empowering experience
mhm,
for them. That's even better than like cuddling, because for them, it was taking their power back and learning how to use their voice and taking their voice back. So other people have a hard time saying yes because they're so closed off. So
mm,
those people get an opportunity to practice saying yes and leaning into that edge of discomfort and seeing how that feels. Obviously, not actually saying yes to something that will truly be like a boundary violation for them, but really like leaning into a yes to overcome the fear, to overcome the discomfort of what might be arising for them. So really it's more than just
mm,
getting together and cuddling with someone. It's in community we get to practice these skills and get better at it in a safe container. Or what we like to say is a safer container and a brave container.
mm.
Because everyone's definition of safety can be different. Safety on some of the deepest levels, from my perspective, is subjective. What one person might feel safe around, another person, it might not feel safe for them. So we try to create more inclusive and safer spaces, but we can't necessarily guarantee every single person's going to feel totally safe in every moment. But we do our best to better understand everyone and meet them where they're at. But we also invite bravery. We invite courage to be with that discomfort and to really lean into it and to really learn and heal and grow from it.
Mm.
So that's a little more to share about kind of what happens in there. Once we get into the open cuddle portion, there's, people kind of just organically evolve into, connection. There's sometimes two people cuddling and chatting together. Other times there's groups of people. And it's kind of just this organic flowing thing. Sometimes you'll go grab a snack or a drink and then you'll go back. It's really kind of a fun thing where you get to just kind of flow and experience, which for me is like way better than like going out to a bar or something,
Yeah.
which I never really resonated with. So
Mm,
it's like a beautiful alternative social experience and even experiment that we get to create together. And yeah, so far each experience has just been incredible and so nourishing. And I haven't actually even like promoted them publicly yet because I've just been inviting people and word has spread and they're like selling out. And it's been really cool to like just have such a positive response and people just like getting so much out of it. And I just feel so honored to have like answered the call to create these spaces. And I'm like excited to like, create more of them and have other people kind of answer the call and step up to create more of these experiences as well. Because I think the world would be a better place if we all had this nourishment in our life. The last thing I'll say is, similar to what you were kind of alluding to and what we've chatted about before, um, it's brought my experience of like neediness around connection and intimacy. Like it's like basically eliminated that. Like I feel so nourished.
yeah.
And like for days and weeks afterwards, and this is the feedback I've been getting, people feel like super nourished and like just like full and aren't like craving, seeking, grasping. Like it just like they're getting filled up. What one term that we've kind of coined during this process has been vitamin HC or human connection. So it's
Yeah.
like, come receive your dose of vitamin HC, the vitamin that most of us are super deficient in our society, and causes all kinds of problems. So it's like, if we have a regular dose of these vitamins, these essential human nutrients, I think that there's a lot less ways that we're going to act out from our wounds and all that kind of stuff, when we're feeling actually satiated and nourished.
Wow. Woo. And you the whole thing. Like we need to bring it to El Paso so we can have like an official cuddle party here because it's I'm so excited to experience it. I've never experienced a fully led conscious cuddling and everything you mentioned is so powerful, like having the opportunity. It's almost like a much more easy and mellow tantric experience where you get to like to not go all the way, but like really in a safe space, practice practice all of these things of like you mentioned communication. When you said the whole like one person spend the whole time saying no, I think I should be that person because I struggle a lot saying no, and I was like, "Oh, shit, like I should probably practice that." Like it's so difficult sometimes for some of us. Specifically, I notice a lot of women struggle with that. So it sounds super
Mm,
powerful. I can't wait to experience it, and it's very inspiring to hear. And one last thing you mentioned is like you're right. Like we spend. I mean, I haven't been to a bar in a long time because it's never been my vibe. Not even when I was younger. But I respect people who love bars and like connecting in that way. I think it has its place too. I think certain people vibe with certain things, but for those of us who don't like to go to bars or to that go to bars just because there is no other option, like being able to have this other alternative choices, like ecstatic dance is one of them, but now like cuddle parties because
mm,
it is so true. We're human beings. We need connection. We're mammals. We're like thrive when we're in community. Like physical touch is so important. When we're deprived from it, this is what, like you said, like when we're not nourished, we're like craving these things. And instead of going, like if you nourish yourself with a healthy smoothie, it's less likely that you're gonna go and grab like the cake afterwards or whatever, like because you're fulfilled in a certain way. So sometimes for me, like, and I feel like this is a good segue to start speaking about tantra and sacred sexuality and
mm,
sacred relationship. But I feel like for me, sexuality is so sacred that I respect everyone's decision. Again, everyone has their own place, but just for me personally, it's never worked to have a wine night stand. I just never wanted to have
mm,
these things. It never feel right. In like if I'm not in, if it's not a full yes for me in my heart and my body, like it feels almost like I'm violating myself by being with someone that I barely know or that I'm not really connected to. So being able to have this awareness and this consciousness of like, why are we saying yes to our sexual relationships? Is it coming from a true yes, from a I'm already fulfilled and now I'm choosing to connect with this other person from a full cup? Or is it, am I trying to extract something from them? Am I trying to fill
mm,
void that it's not fed because I can't like give gift myself the connection that I need in other ways that are healthier. So
yeah.
yeah, amazing conversations. And I guess from now let's like segue into whatever you feel calm warriors. Tantra, well, actually, let's go into tantra because I really want to get into the
Mhm.
relationship. It's so juicy after this because I feel actually you met your partner in a tantric container. So let's like speak a little bit about your work with sacred tantra and yeah, everything you've been evolving into in your personal journey. Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'll first start by saying I am by no means any kind of expert on Tantra. I am still relatively new to it, just within the last few years. Also, clarify up front that there's two main definitions of Tantra, just to kind of get them distinguished. One is classical Tantra, which is more referring to what I would say is kind of more of one of the most original spirituality lineages that, for can be dated like 5,000 plus years back, where a lot of honestly modern day religions at some point stem back to. That kind of originated somewhere over in kind of India, I believe, originally. So that is one form of Tantra. What a lot of people, especially in the Western world, think that is sometimes called Western Tantra or Neo Tantra, it typically has more of a focus on sacred sexuality.
Mhm.
And the reason for that is that most religions today and most even spiritual paths either pretty much ignore or downright shame sexuality. And so, where Tantra is different is that Tantra honors sexuality as just one other human aspect of the whole human experience. And it honors and even celebrates it, and encourages exploration of it. So, in that regard, that's kind of why Tantra has a bit of this reputation as like a word, that people associate it with sex or sexuality or sacred sexuality. That's more referring to Neo Tantra or Western Tantra. So, just wanted to kind of distinguish that. But also, it's about so much more than that. Yes, the sexual energy is really powerful, and it's definitely something that is can be very valuable to work with, especially even in a healing and transformational context. That's the one of the things I most admire and appreciate about an organization like ISTA, which they're not definitely the first ones to do this by any means, but they definitely consciously utilize sexuality and sexual energy in order to basically channel that for healing and transformational purposes by creating a safe and powerful container, or a safer, powerful, brave container in order to experience healing, and especially even with community. So, for me, I feel very drawn to. I grew up very like conservative in a lot of ways. I grew up in the Catholic Church, and actually, one of my very first potential professions or careers I thought I would walk was to become a Catholic priest.
Wow.
I,
I think you should.
which is wild, where I'm at now, which I'll kind of come to that full circle in a moment. But, I felt that was the first time I felt like connected to God. That's the first time I felt connected to the divine, was through the container of the religion of Catholicism. And I think there are many beautiful aspects to that religion. It really did give me a lot of positives and benefits. It helped to create this moral, ethical foundation for me. It gave me some early experiences of community. And also, there were a lot of things I experienced that were not helpful and that were pretty negative in my life, and actually really traumatizing and damaging about growing up in that religion as well, which I think is true of most religions or most spiritual paths, even. There's in most of life, that's just life. There's a lot of positives and aspects of certain things. There's also can be a lot of negative aspects. And it's our job to take responsibility and ownership over our experience, and to continue to evolve ourselves in a way that we take what is beneficial and supportive and empowering and leave behind what is not, and heal from those experiences we had that we really didn't have much of a choice over. I didn't choose my religion. I didn't choose the surroundings I grew up in. Well, unless you want to view it from a soul perspective, then a lot of people would actually say that I did, at least on some level. I chose kind of the resonant life experience that would teach me the lessons that I was here to learn in this life, to heal and rebalance some of the karmas from my past lives, which I am definitely a pretty big believer in all of that. But on some level, on a conscious level at least, growing up, I didn't really have a choice over how that all played out. But now, as an adult, it's like it's my responsibility, it's our responsibility to decide how we relate to all of those experiences. So eventually, I ended up leaving the Catholic Church halfway through college and starting to explore much more spiritually in different ways. I've walked the full spectrum range of spiritual experiences from, as you mentioned, plant medicine, most primarily ayahuasca for about 8 years. I've done yoga teacher training. I've done some Vipassana retreats. I've done dark meditation retreats. I've done energy healing and breath work and, all of that. Akashic records training. There's been a whole variety of experiences I've had that have kind of led me to this point of now exploring, Tantra, which I use a more expansive definition of that. Again, I'm still fairly new and learning about this, but for me, the energetics of Tantra seem pretty inclusive and all encompassing and welcoming of a lot of the aspects of spirituality that I've connected to over the years. And it really, the people and the humans that I've been meeting in this community we've been developing are some of the most deeply resonant and multifaceted, multidimensional, benevolent, and inspiring human beings that I've met. And I'm just really enjoying getting to know these other humans. And it feels like there's this bigger thing that's being orchestrated, that I'm one amongst others who are being called to our sacred leadership to really create more community, create more containers for experiences. And I love how you kind of reference that a cuddle party is kind of like a nice introductory container to something like Tantra. And that's exactly what my intention is. I intend to expand into facilitating other experiences. You know, I've been to other experiences like temple nights where there's a wider range of possibilities in how you connect with others. But I wanted to kind of start from the bottom, start from square one, which is friendship and platonic connection and just nourishment, like basic human nourishment that most of us, even those of us who have been on more advanced paths, are still missing a lot in our lives. Some of my friends who are some of the most advanced spiritual beings I know have benefited greatly from these cuddle parties, and we've all been loving it because we're like, man, I feel like we skipped a few steps. And like getting back to the basics of just this basic human connection, this basic touch and nourishment has been almost unexpectedly profound for
Mm.
us. So just been really enjoying that. You know, definitely excited for the future, excited for what's to come, excited for other experiences. I'm going to be assisting with and participating in a number of additional experiences over the next 6 months, and also kind of bringing more of my gifts to the table in, you know, coaching and mentorship again, which I'm excited about.
Mhm.
But yeah, Tantra to me is, kind of sum it up in the moment, is it's an opportunity for us to really reconsider our basic human needs, what it means to be in connection with other human beings, what it means to be in community with other human beings, and how really exploring the edge of like, how much can we give ourselves what we need?
Mm.
How much do we have in our own communities that we don't actually need to look outside of ourselves or to the government or to anything else other than just the humans around us to help us fulfill certain needs? And of course, we all have a responsibility to nourish ourselves and continue becoming more sovereign and taking care of ourselves. And we can do that together.
Mm.
Um, and the last thing I'll kind of close with for this piece is another kind of phrase that has come up in these cuddle parties is the other big reason I started them was because I've been lonely most of my life.
Mm.
I was like such a loner most of my life growing up. Not that I didn't have friends here and there, and I'm very grateful for that, but most of the time I was kind of quiet, kept to myself. I was bullied pretty intensely in early elementary school, and it didn't feel safe to be vulnerable and open up and connect with others, or only to a degree. So I felt pretty lonely most of my life, and I've been wanting even more human connection in my life and nourishment and touch. And so I almost created out of my own personal selfish desire in a way, but apparently a lot of other people resonate with that too. So the phrase that we kind of came up with was, let's be alone together.
Wow, I love that. I love that one. And it kind of feels very profound because it's true. It's like for me, like I feel like I'm an only child. So I when I was a child, I had to be alone, not because I wanted it, but because I had to. And then I grew up to really love it. Like now I really enjoy my alone time so much because I've learned to spend really great quality time with myself. But it's from that like full nourishment of like really quality alone time that I get to connect with other people who are also really great at like being alone. And it's almost like oh, let's be alone together. Like but from a full cup, you know? Like I love that. It's so beautiful. And yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah,
take
and
yeah.
yeah, you can totally borrow that. You can totally steal that. Yeah,
Mm.
and I love my alone time. I'm naturally more introverted, And like if I don't get enough alone time, like that's not good for me. Like I need my alone time. And there's always this ever-present desire for human connection.
Mhm.
So it's like, how can we, you know, receive more of that in our lives and feel a little less lonely in this life? Which yeah, we it's been fun exploring and experimenting and discovering that wow, we actually have a lot more power than we even realized to meet those basic needs with each other.
Yeah. You know what? After the pandemic, I think that really brought up to the forefront for most people, like afterwards started becoming like or realizing like how alone they felt. So, like we all felt very alone. That's well, I actually really enjoyed it because it's like, yeah, I'm in retreat. We're all in retreat. But most people were really feeling lonely. Like there was a lot of suicides happening and everything. And I feel like things like this coming up right now, like after the pandemic, like can really like bring awareness and like new ways to relate. And I'm just really excited. I'm really excited for your project and get can wait to experience it myself. But okay,
Mm,
so I really want to go back to like the whole tantra. Thank you for explaining it so beautifully. Like I feel like a lot of people get confused with tantra and like they immediately think it's just sexual. So to know that actually that's just one small portion of like what tantra really is and how how I like to see tantra is like someone really explained it beautifully to me. It's like learning how to walk through the 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 edge of the sword and like balance life like
mm,
if you're a monk you're like walking a different path, you know, like it's like a more straight path to God. But very few of us nowadays get that possibility of being retreated in a cave or in a monastery and just that's all you do, meditate and be with God in that way. But most humans actually will learn like if you want to have a spiritual life, you still have to live in this world. You still have to navigate everyday things. You're still living them, paying bills, having relationships with people. Like, all of these things come up. So learning how to continue to stay in a, I feel like most people are practicing tantra without knowing. You know, like I put myself
mm,
in that because it's like it's finding the balance between all opposites of life and really finding that middle ground like we're divine but we're also human and bringing God and spirituality to everyday things like everything that we do including sexuality. But
yep,
that leads to that, so
yep.
thank you for that. And yeah, like a little bit more of the sacred. Okay, I know you went through just like the most incredible experiences, the most incredible retreats, but if you feel called to share like maybe one that pops up for you, like one personal experience that you had in one of these retreats, if like you can bring us closer to your experience,
Yeah.
what you learned, what you
Yeah.
took away from it. Hmm.
Yeah, so the piece I actually feel called to share, which I think will help us bridge a little bit to like the relationship,
Yeah.
uh, energetics aspect of things. So, um, wait, hold on, let me fill into that for just a moment. Hmm. 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 Yeah, so actually what I want to share is so when I met my partner in the first ceremony I did called shamanic de-armoring,
Mm.
it was interesting because to kind of pick up from that story that I mentioned, when we first met each other, we had this really deep conversation before the sweat lodge, and then basically we're just like, "You're really cool. Like, let's be friends. Let's be allies on this journey. Let's just like support the fuck out of each other over these next 2 weeks." And because it's going to be an intense experience, and it'd be good to have like someone else to like be a support. So as the experience went along, we kind of just got to know each other a little better. We started hanging out outside of the ceremonial container because we had some time during the day. And yeah, we just started spending more time together. And the interesting thing that happened was the relationship kind of just like revealed itself to us,
Mhm.
where we were just noticing the depth that was already there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I had to try, it was just revealing itself to us as we were both just being ourselves. And the funny part too was I wasn't even looking for a relationship. I was like specifically not looking for a relationship. which I guess is kind of cliche. When you're not looking for it, that's when it
I want
arrives.
to rewind into that because I feel like before
Mhm.
you came into this point of not looking for a relationship, there was a few years there where you really were calling in that partner, right? And
Yes.
yeah, and like so it's so yeah, so beautiful. Like when you stop looking, they show up. Um,
Yeah, which I think there's something too, like, yeah, like I was really tuning into my desire for like a sacred partnership. And that was still there. It just felt like recently it's like what I was being asked was just to let go of that entirely and to just be open and explore and just have the most resonant connection with every human that I came across. And I started to build some really beautiful connections and even create some intimacy with other humans, not even specifically sexual or even specifically romantic, but just intimacy with other humans, like deep platonic emotional intimacy, even some physical intimacy, which was really beautiful. And then this human unexpectedly shows up in my life. And I was like, not even at first, I literally told her, I was just like, I'm not looking for a relationship. Uh, which she very much was. She was like very clear for like 3 years that she was. And, for me, this brings up one lesson I want to share, which is I've really been liking this analogy of holding beliefs with an open palm.
mm,
So, like, not grasping so tightly to them, but just like holding them, strongly and safely, but being willing to let them go if it's not truly serving, being willing to allow them to evolve or change or shift if
mhm,
that's not really what's most alive anymore. And so it took me a little bit of time to start to open to and accept and acknowledge that there was something else happening here that I didn't expect that continued to reveal the truth of the experience to me. So I think that's to me like a really powerful and helpful perspective to hold
mhm,
of just showing up without an expectation or an agenda, but just continuing to like be really present with the human being in front of us that we're connecting with and
mhm,
noticing and acknowledging what's arising and just speaking truth. And that's all we did. We just kept speaking the truth to each other,
mhm,
kept speaking the truth of our experience, what we were feeling, and where things were evolving to. And yeah, by the end of that 2 week container,
mhm.
we had evolved into some sort of deeper connection and relationship and intimacy, and had gotten clear that we were going to do more of life together
Wow.
because I wasn't attached to the idea that I absolutely don't want a relationship. I was just didn't think that's what was next. I didn't think that's what was happening, and I wasn't on my radar at the moment because I
Mhm,
was so happy and fulfilled in myself that I was like, I don't need that. Like it would be cool, it would be nice at some point, but I'm happy just exploring what I'm exploring. And that's when it like kind of created the space for it to actually arrive because I completely let go of any of the attachments or neediness or expectations I had while still acknowledging there was a deep desire for it
mhm,
and just allowing myself to realize that it was arriving and that it was here, and just to notice the depth.
mm. So
Yeah.
beautiful. I love like what how you mentioned at the beginning of like walking your secret leadership. And I hear this a lot, like specifically with conscious couples, like you meet your person when you're following your secret calling, and when you're really
Yes.
living from your heart, from your most authentic self. That's often, and when you're already done, well, not always, right? Like it's not a requirement. Like when you're like healed, no, like it's an ever ongoing process of healing until we stop being humans. But like when you're already in a place of enough self-love that you can actually share with another the fullness of you. So I really love that you found her during
Mm.
like a retreat like this that is so profound, that is so life changing, and it brings up everything, right? Like all the things to the surface. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think our attachments, when we're too attached to something, it can be the very thing that prevents it from coming.
Yeah.
Almost like when we it's a fine line, I think. It's like when we want something too bad to the point of like not fully honoring that we also have that already in ourselves. I think that's when you get into trouble, is when it's like you're to the point of like seeking it outside of yourself, that like this person's going to save you, this person's going to fix you, this person's going to complete you. I'm just not a believer in that.
Mhm.
I think some people that maybe can work for them, but I also look at the state of our relationship in our society, and a majority of marriages end in divorce, or if they do stay together, there's a lot of unhappy marriages. And there are some cases where people have figured it out, and that's beautiful. But I think there's just a real deep invitation I've been receiving that it's time for us to reconsider relationship at large. It's time for us to reconsider if like the fundamental models we're operating from couldn't use some fundamental upgrades. Not to even say a relationship ending is a failure. I don't think that has to be the case. But again, I think there's just some larger conversations to be had about relationship and what that means and how we're approaching it. For me, when I was getting to know Compassion, I was just like, I love being around this human. She's just quickly becoming one of my favorite humans. And I feel so good being around her. And we have such great conversations and great connection. And she's like one of the funniest people I know. And like, just like, I love being around this human. I want to just be around this human more. And it like started off that simple and has just like built such a foundation from there of like, I'm just happy to be in your presence. I'm
Mhm.
just grateful to be in her presence and for us to experience the gifts that come from each other being in our presence. There isn't this attachment to needing to get somewhere, needing to get married. There wasn't an attachment to like get to sex, nothing like that. It's like, let's just be with what's actually here. Let's be with each other. Let's be with the energy, with what's alive. And to me, that just feels so much lighter and healthier and more fun, while also still being able to have it feel very sacred and very honoring, even more so, because we're just taking it one step at a time. We're not grasping, seeking, attaching to our ideas about what we think this relationship is or what we think it should be. We're simply tuning into what it actually is and what it wants to become. It's
Mhm.
almost like we're listening to and answering to what the relationship itself, this third energy that some people speak to, wants to become and what it actually is, and allowing it to continue to reveal itself to us. And we're evolving with it while we evolve with each other.
Mhm. Wow, I love that. I love everything you just shared. And I want to ask you this question because you mentioned at the beginning you didn't know if you want you were pretty much like I don't want to be in a relationship. So I want to like know like when like if you can remember when was the moment when that shifted for you and where that shifted for both
Mm,
you realized like whoa this is actually meant to be something deeper. Because I know there were many moments leading to it.
mm.
But it must have been like one specific moment that like shifted.
Yeah, yeah, I would say that like it was kind of a progressive thing. It wasn't necessarily one moment. There was a number of moments where we just noticed that like the deeper layers and the more expansiveness of the relationship. I mean, one that comes to mind is um after like after I think it was only like the third day or something that we had met each other, she said something effective like she's like, I feel like I know you from like a past life or something. But she very quickly clarified, like, she's like, I don't just say that though. Like, I've never said that to anyone in my life. I don't just go around saying, oh, I know you from a past life. She was like, no, like, there's something about our connection that just like feels like different than I've ever experienced before. And that was like a moment where I was just like, yeah, like I feel that too. It's like hard to like fully put my finger on, but it feels like my soul like already knows you. Um, and then even like a few days after that, about a week in to our first retreat, she formally wrote me a letter inviting me to be her partner in the Womb of Benevolent Compassion ceremony. Because in order to do that ceremony, you need to have done the shamanic de-armoring. You also have to do the sacred sexuality experience, the Kwadoshka. and you have to have a partner, at least a medicine partner for that ceremony, which medicine partner means you're partners, but just like for that ceremony, you make an agreement to be partners in that ceremony. And so like at first I like wasn't sure if that was for me. I just didn't know enough about it. I already had like my ISTA retreat coming up that would have been literally right after that. I'm like, I don't have the money for it. I have like a work obligation the weekend of the Kwadoshka, which I also would have to do. It's like there was multiple reasons why I thought it just wouldn't work out. But one thing that really, I think, further made me realize about the depth of the connection and that there was something more there was that she fully honored me in my decision-making process. She made it very clear that she wasn't attached to needing me to be her partner for that. She really wanted me to make an authentic decision for me, from myself,
Mm,
and not have her be like trying to influence me in any way or anything like that. She really wanted it to come from me and my sovereignty. And she said, like, even if you say no, like, I still want to continue deepening our connection and growing together, regardless of, what your decision is about that.
mm,
So I think that to me, I felt super honored and respected, and she really was patient and gave me my time to make my decision and sit in discernment. And to me, that felt super empowering and really showed me more of her character. And I think it created the spaciousness for me to make that decision from an authentic place, which ended up being a yes, um, which was beautiful. But I think that is something that really deepened and solidified our connection because that was hard for her too. Like it was really challenging for her to do that. There was so many parts of her that wanted to be attached to her, that wanted me to say yes, and she had the maturity to find a healthy place of non-attachment, to find a deeper honoring of me and my sovereignty and my choice in what was right for me and what was in alignment for me. So I think that was like another major milestone that really like deepened our connection.
love that. So beautiful, so profound. Wow. And like that whole dynamic as well, because sometimes as women we want certain things from men, and it's difficult to not fall into manipulative ways of getting it, and like really allow for the what is true to unfold. So I think, and like for men, like for men too, of just like fully having that spaciousness. I feel like this dynamic of like men need to take space away and retire. Not other, I don't want to generalize, but I want to say like for the most part, I feel like every time there's like a big decision to make or there's like a conflict, like initially what happens is like the woman wants to like talk about it and resolve it and like get immediate answers, and the men want to take time alone and be in the caves.
Mm.
For women, it's a great practice to fall back and like be like I can allow that space without feeling abandoned, without feeling rejected, and for men to feel honored in that, but also simultaneously, honoring the other person's experience. And yeah, I feel like that's a beautiful dance that all of us need to learn. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I guess now that we're in the topic of relationship, like how long like you guys have been together? Like it feels like for what you've shared with me, maybe in the human time period it's been like a couple of months or so, but for the depth of experiences that you guys have had, like if anyone here listening has ever gone to any kind of retreat, it just feels like lifetimes happen in like a couple of days, of like everything that the profundity of the experiences that unfold when you're in a space like this. So you guys went from retreat to retreat to retreat, like from powerful experience to another. So to me,
Yep.
like that just blows my mind of like, also what you were saying, like she needed like she needed to have done all of these trainings before arriving to the benevolent compassion, like and you without knowing, like you were already kind of doing them, like you were already showing up and like your souls kind of like called each other. And I love it. It's such a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing with us. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a very accelerated process, I would say. It's been the most intense 2 months of my life, the last 2 months. And one thing that I'll share about our relationship, I think we can probably save some deeper, juicier stuff for future episodes. But one thing I'll share is that that's been really beautiful that and different about this connection than any other connection I've had is even the moments we've had where there's been some sort of like crunchy moment or like a small miscommunication or even like one of our shadows or wounds are coming up,
Mhm.
we have very quickly been able to transmute that energy and use that as fuel and to strengthen the relationship. We've been able to transmute and channel that energy in a way that has actually built the foundation, the
Mhm.
energetic foundation of our connection that only continues to get more and more solid
Mhm.
because each of us have done many years and lifetimes of work on ourselves, the inner work, in order to have cultivated those skills and qualities. I'm very clear, and she's very clear that there's no way that this connection would have happened and that this relationship would be working in the way that it is without each of us having just such a deep devotion to our own inner work.
Mhm. Mhm.
To
That's
me, that's the foundation for any type of healthy, empowered relationship that can grow and last over time.
wow. I love that because it's so true. Like in you mentioned earlier that a lot of relationships end up in divorce, like marriages, and I feel like in society in general, we have such low tolerance for conflict and for chaos and for when things get tough, just in general. But when it comes in relationship, I see this a lot, like this dynamic of like things get hard and like one of the persons runs away and then goes into the next dynamic and things are beautiful again until it gets to the similar point of intensity and then they keep running away. So in a way, I feel like this is when we're in relation to another, we're choosing to deepen our relationship with ourselves because everything that arises, every shadow, every wound, everything is an opportunity for more expansion, for more love, for more growth.
Mm,
And it can either sometimes, yeah, certain conflicts show you that maybe this relationship is meant to end and being truly honoring of that choice. But a lot of the times it's a call for deeper connection. Because when conflict is approached in a very conscious and healthy way, like you said, it can bring you into like unbelievable levels of deeper intimacy, deeper trust, deeper connection. So I love this too, like the redefining of relationship. We need to create a new definition of relationship, and I feel like it's happening. Like I feel this movement of consciousness in general is like really spreading into all areas of our lives, whether it's like healthy living, our food choices, spirituality, but also relationship. It's super important
yep.
because everything in this world is based in relationship. And what I see a lot, like I have a lot of private clients and honestly most people like have like severe traumas from child
Mm,
because they did not experience or witnessed healthy love between their parents and like their parents didn't know how to love each other but sometimes they didn't even know how to love their children. So I feel like it's very
yep.
tragic and learning to undo all of that, those old ways of relating and reconstructing better ways that are more serving to love is kind of our sacred responsibility. So,
Yeah, totally. It's our job to, give ourselves what our parents couldn't give us. Even, for me, I'm blessed that I had a overall very healthy, loving, supportive
mm,
household growing up. And also there was things that my parents never taught me and never modeled for me and that I've struggled with my whole life. Um,
so I went away. I just needed to plug back the computer because it was almost running out of battery. But yeah, you were
nice.
saying like you did got that in your parents. Yeah.
Yeah, even if you had a relatively healthy model of our parenting, there's a lot of things they're still going to miss because they only one human can only have so much life experience and can only embody so much, especially from where we've come from. So I think it's our job to figure out what are those missing pieces that we never received. How do we need to re-parent or re-educate ourselves?
Mhm.
And, for me, it's been really fun doing that in connection with someone else who is able to like meet me there Like she's even influenced me in multiple ways that have positively improved other aspects of my life. I've actually been eating even healthier. I already had a relatively healthy diet, but we've been incorporating a lot more like vegetables and cooking of things fresh. And like that's been a really cool thing. It's kind of rubbed off on me from our relationship that like even when she's not around, like I'm going and buying more produce and like cooking them up and making more like amazing, delicious meals for myself. So that's been like a cool like relationship really, I think, is a part of holistic wellness. If
Mm.
we want to have that conversation, it's about conscious living. Like if we don't have healthy relationships in our lives, then everything else can suffer. It almost cannot matter how healthy of a diet you have or healthy of an exercise routine if you're like starving for connection, if you're
Mm.
starving for healthy human relationships, that can just as negatively impact you, if not more, than any other aspect of your life that you kind of can't substitute that in a way. Of course, it's all important, but my curiosity is how can we use relationship to positively influence the other aspects of our life and inspire us to want to do better and to live better in the other aspects of our life, which that's happened for me. I've had to get more focused in my life and in my work and in like being more even effective with my time, being more discerning with how I spend my time and energy, because it's like the better I do that, the better I can show up in my relationship and the more meaningful time I can spend in my relationship when I have all of my other stuff better handled.
Mm. I
So it's
love.
like a healthy pressure.
Mm. I love that. Like, okay, I want to just ask one couple more questions because first of all, like for me personally, sometimes I think I have this belief system that I have all these things to do, and if I have a partner, they're going to distract me from my path. Like
Yeah.
I can't waste my time with that. And I keep hearing from people that are in true conscious relationships because if truly, if you're not in a healthy conscious relationship and it becomes more dramatic than it needs to, it can totally drain your energy and become like like take away your time and energy in a way that is not fulfilling. But like every relationship that I see that is very conscious are like, no, actually being in a relationship helps me like fulfill my purpose even more. I want you
Yep.
to, yeah. Is that how you feel? Like, yeah.
Totally. And, past relationships, I would say had some elements of that it like seemed like certain threads we were able to be like, co-empowered and supportive, but other threads felt still like codependent or distracting or just not aligned.
Mhm.
This is the first connection I've had that feels holistically co-empowered and supportive and not codependent
Yeah.
because I had come to that place in myself and she had come to that place in herself, at least close enough that, obviously there's still things that come up. We notice little patterns. There's times we project on each other. There's times codependent patterns do come up. And that's okay. And that's expected. And we are healed enough. We are evolved enough. We are mature enough to be able to handle those things together. And then the overall of the relationship is that it's calling both of us up to our next levels. It's
Mm.
calling both of us up to our next level of sacred leadership, of full empowerment, of fuller responsibility in our lives, and is just like really evolving us to the next versions of ourselves. But I think it is something to work towards. I think if I had to like offer my past self advice or others who maybe feel like they're not quite there yet to that level of holistic embodiment is don't be too overly attached to a connection.
Mhm.
Don't hang on longer than you should. But also, the opposite of the spectrum, some people don't allow themselves to go deep enough.
Mm. Mhm.
They like cut a connection off at the first sign of trouble, like you were saying earlier, and don't actually allow themselves to be in the discomfort of it and to learn the skills to know how to work through that, to be in conflict energy, but to transmute that a bit more, which I was able to do in some past connections. It got to a point where there was too much fundamental misalignment or wasn't enough skillfulness on one side or the other that we couldn't go really much further. And I knew, it's knowing when to truly let go of a connection that is fundamentally misaligned, that after a number of attempts, it's just not working, which I've had to do in certain connections, but also like get as much as you can out of each connection, honor it for what it is, and know that over time you get to keep getting better at this. It's a skill set you can develop and trust yourself in doing that. And eventually, like you get to reach greater levels of mastery where, there's less and less that you can't handle. It almost doesn't matter what comes up because you're confident that you're going to be able to navigate that together.
I love that. Yeah, I love this one last thing I wanted to touch upon, and especially for those people there who haven't met their one person yet, or the person that feels like in this deep level of alignment yet. And I speak for myself, I guess, in this one because I've had a lot of beautiful connections, but yet I still haven't found the person that I'm like, I want to do life with, or like this feels like a full fuck yes. And sometimes I wonder because I do have, like you mentioned earlier, like you feel like you met compassion maybe in a past life. Like it was more like the relationship was already there and was kind of unfolding. And from my previous conversations with you, I feel like you already had a fair idea of what you were looking for in a partner.
Hmm.
Like and women, like I speak again for myself, but most women we have a list, it's like this and that. And it's like you said, like yeah, holding what we want, but also with a loose hand of like, yes, this is kind of what I want, but also like I guess my question is how in compassion, like how much of what you previously wanted in a partner did you found in her? Because sometimes I wonder maybe we already know our partner on a soul level, and this is why we want these qualities because we're looking for this specific. But sometimes I wonder, is this hindering? Like, is this like limiting my capacity to meet other people and maybe don't fully align with all the things that I'm looking for? And how to find that balance of like when it's a full just no, and when it's
Mm.
something that maybe if I open myself more or work more in this connection, it can form into a full yes. So yeah,
Mm.
from your perspective. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, great question. So what's coming up for me around this is I think there is better and worse ways to approach like calling in a partner,
Mm-hmm.
and there's better and worse like things to put on the list. For me, perhaps better things to put on the list of like calling in a partner is like certain qualities versus like, like, oh, like this tall and this hair color and this, all of that, which not it's not a bad thing to have preferences, but I think there's a difference between preferences and like deep resonance and qualities, like embodied qualities. So like what are the embodied qualities that you want in a partner? And like if this partner showed up with these qualities in this way, like let's say deep listening, like you want a partner who will deeply listen, is truly present. Awesome. That's great. Let's say you want a partner who will communicate when there is something that doesn't feel right or doesn't feel good and is proactive in their communication. That's a great quality as well. So you can create a list like that. But then the key for me is take all those qualities and develop those in yourself, refine those in yourself, because there's always next levels that we can reach on those. And for me, like the only like long-term assured path I know that I feel like is the one I've been walking and why this connection came in is just a deepening of my own devotion to my own refinement of whatever qualities I would most ideally prefer in a partner. So it's like if you continue on an infinite path of refinement of all of the ways that you want to become the best human being you can be and be most proud of yourself in who you're continuing to become. Because I became really proud of myself this year on like another level of who I am as a man, as a human being. And I'm like, fuck yeah, go Nathan. Like you're awesome. Like you're killing it. You're crushing it. And not in any external validation kind of way, but just like on my own standards and who I've become and the reflections I've received from people close to me. I'm just like, yes, you're doing it. This is it. You are the person that you've been aiming to become. So just the more that I kept doing that, the more inevitable it became that I would meet someone else who could meet me there, who could match me there. And then I think the last piece that kind of ties it all together is taking all of that, honoring that, acknowledging that, and then like giving it up to God, essentially saying like this or greater. And like, I don't know. I don't truly know what I want. I don't truly know what I need from like a very playful spirit of like, these are all the things that the best of my current awareness and consciousness, I think that I want. And saying, and God, like, you know better.
Yeah.
Because there's no way I could have even predicted like a lot of who Compassion is in the life path that she walked. Because we're actually so opposite in certain ways in the journeys that we've walked. And I wouldn't have guessed that like someone who did this in their life or who had these kind of qualities was like the perfect match that I needed for where I'm at in my journey and what would be supportive and create this foundation we're creating. I think it can be less helpful at some point to try to overly predict or overly try to call in so many specific things about a person. Use it as inspiration, definitely write down or sit with what feels resonant, but just keep working on those qualities and ultimately be open. And
Mm.
that was the quality I really was embodying this year, right before I met her, was like I was just open. I just felt open. I'm like, okay, like whatever connections you want to deliver me, God, that are most resonant for me in my life, I'm open to them. And here I am, and there's space for them. And then let trust that the divine will take care of the rest and that there's a higher intelligence that knows far beyond my current limited human self knows in this moment. Which is why it was such a surprise. It's like I wasn't even expecting it, but God knew.
Wow, that's super powerful. So funny, like uh, one of my one of the relationships that I most admire is the one with my the people who I consider my teachers and friends. They introduced me. They were my yoga teacher trainings, but they also introduced me to the plant medicine world. They're called Kobe and Ananda.
Mhm.
And I when I asked Ananda, like, how do you manifest this relationship? She was like, I had a whole list. And like she had a whole list with like details, you know? And even like I want him to be a great dancer and like even superficial, all kinds of details. It was like I had this whole list and then I did a ceremony and I when I went to the fire, I burned it and I was like, I let it all go. Like her spirit was like, just bring me my spiritual match. Like she released
Yep.
that, just bring me my spiritual match. And then he appeared and he's like everything on the list except he's not a good dancer. And it's like, it's not relevant, really. I love it too. It's like God knows best, like universe knows best, and we just need to trust.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and just, the last thing I'll say there, and I know we're probably coming up on time to wrap up here pretty soon, is like just keep living life in a way that even if that partner never came, you would be satisfied with. That even if they never came, can you learn to more and more enjoy your life, enjoy yourself, feel proud of yourself, encourage yourself, like be that partner to yourself, which is also why like I do have the belief that like I am my primary partner and I always will be. I will always be my number one partner in my life because if I'm not, like no one else can be other than maybe, me and my relationship with myself and with God. It's like that's like the triad, that's like the triforce, the trinity connection there. That nothing else can replace and like that other person is not going to arrive until all of that, until we're right relationship with all of that. And the better we can cultivate those relationships with ourselves and with God, that's it right there. That's the foundation. And that creates opportunity for someone else to actually arrive who can really just come in and continue supporting what you're already building yourself, what you're already creating for yourself, a life you're already living. Like it's like a bonus feeling. It's like as much as like I do have the highest hopes and intentions that we'll continue to grow together for infinite time. You know, it was, I wasn't waiting for it anymore. I was just being myself, living my life. And I realized I have everything I need to keep moving forward on my path. And if and when someone else would come in to support that journey and enhance it and take it to the next level, great. And that's what happened. But I wasn't waiting around for it and I didn't need it in that way. But I do kind of need it to get to the next levels in the way that I'm being called to. And now I get to learn and enjoy and appreciate this new element that has come into my life and what we get to now like create together that wasn't possible without us coming together in the energy that the relationship brings.
I love that. That's so powerful. And thank you for bringing that, like to wrap it up, because I think it's such an important message. And like the whole, like becoming the one, like being the one that we're looking for. Like I deeply resonate with what you said at the end of like you are your primary partner. I feel like so many terms that you're using, I'm like, I want to use that too because it's so real. Like I feel like when I was younger in my life, like I was looking for a partner. And now that I'm 35, like, everybody around me wants me to have a partner, like praying, my family's praying, because they want me to get married. And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, and it's genuine. Like I'm not like making it up or nothing. Like I'm so fulfilled with me and who I am right now, and my life is just so amazing, and I'm having the best time ever. That whenever shows up, I'm 100% okay. And my standard is like high, so it's like unless they come to really add to this mix in a way that feels like you said, like a next level of expansion, then I'm fully open. I'm not closed off to it, but I feel like our relationship with ourselves should be the priority always because the beloved the beloved first of all is internal, is our soul, is our spirit. But the partners that we have, they can come and go, they can even pass away. Like we never know, like we cannot rely on the people around us to provide us for that love always because it needs to be birthed from within. The inner marriage has to happen within the interconnection of the inner masculine and feminine, and then from there all of our relationships benefit and come into alignment, whether it's with our family or with our friends or with a beloved. So I love it. Thank you so much, Nathan. Wow,
Mm.
such a rich and beautiful conversation. And like again, like I could speak to you for hours, but just to honor the timing, I think this is a great moment to wrap up. Yeah, I just really want to thank you for your presence and your wisdom and your connection always. And yeah, and if there's any last bit of thing that you want to share, if you feel complete before we close.
Mm. Yeah, I just want to thank you for having me on. I had such a great time. It was so fun. It's always fun weaving these conversations with you and the many threads we can go down. And yeah, just really honored to be a guest here. And yeah, hopefully anyone who listened this far, you got something really valuable out of this. Yeah, excited to come on here more. And yeah, if anyone wants to connect with me, I'm sure you can share my details and all of that in the show notes and stuff.
Absolutely. Mhm. Yeah, do you want
So
to your Instagram just if people want to directly go find
yeah,
you?
yeah, yeah. So you can find me on Instagram at Nathan Coury, NathanCoury. Yeah, feel free to reach out, follow me, shoot me a message if anything resonated and you want to chat more. But yeah, just thanks for having me on. I just really love these threads we've been going down. I feel like these conversations we're having are just so important, especially at this time of evolution for our species. It's such a special time right now. And yeah, just really grateful to just play my role as one human being to try and support this collective evolution we're going through. So thanks for creating this space that people can come to and receive medicine from, receive perspective from, and connect with. It's really valuable. And yeah, thank you for being courageous to step into your sacred leadership more fully. So yeah, honored to be a part of it.
Thank you, and honoring you back. Yay! Yeah, all the information will be in the show notes. And thank you for listening, everybody. Until next episode. Thank you, Nathan. Much love, brother, and much love to you all.